Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are, another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. And I have Sean with me again today. Hey, Sean, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, you're busy over there, I can tell.
Yeah.
Stuff going on. Episode number 262 is called Designing Your Creative Real Estate Business to Run Itself Easily and Profitably.
I like the sound of that.
You like that, don't you?
Yeah, that sounds right up my alley.
Yeah. So here's a description. Why is your real estate business stuck? Maybe the solution is not the solution. We are too often taught that working hard or workaholism is a better and more effective way. If you just focus, you could be more productive and in return, more profitable.
Yep.
But this steals your dreams of being on a beach or getting your life back. At best, being on a beach as a workcation, juggling what work you didn't do in advance. Truth is, these time hacks are only justifications of your lack of systems that not only hurt you, but those around you too. In this podcast, myself and Sean are going to take a deep dive on an unusual concept of limiting your time so you can do more. It's an oxymoron, huh? And all while playing it safe and profitable. You may not know this, but you might be stuck in a never-ending survival trap and don't know how to get off this merry-go-round. If you want to throw away your trashy day-to-day life habits, then this episode is going to be that ray of light that will separate the skies and shine down onto you so you can actually do what it is most important to you from this point on. Some bold promises there, eh?
Yeah. I'm excited.
Okay, so first of all, we changed the link in the description. So wherever you're watching this podcast or listening to this podcast, there's a link in there to some automation tools that we are going to introduce here in a little while. So if you go into that link, if you go into that description, you'll find it. We have had the habit of recording this podcast on Thursday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now that Pete's not here, we're changing that. It looks like we've been doing around 10:30 on Thursday mornings. Perhaps we will stick with that for a little while. Actually, in a couple episodes, I'm going to have Jessie, my daughter, on here. We're going to try to do a couple nights. Maybe a Tuesday night or a Thursday night. I'm not sure about that yet. And do some live streaming at night so we can record the podcast then. And maybe that'll help some of our listeners maybe join us on the groups. If you go to Facebook or YouTube at any one of those times, if you're subscribed to us, you'll know that we're on because it'll send you a notification saying that we're live. But you can go to YouTube or you could go to Facebook. I have a screen in front of me. If you put comments in either section, either YouTube, or if you put comments in Facebook, I can answer your questions while we're chatting and recording the podcast. Otherwise, the podcasts go live every Monday morning, 8 o'clock our time, which should be about the same for you. And you can listen to the episodes in whatever podcast platform you use. Okay? So we get that out of the way, get the geeks off my back. So, Sean, I'm going to start off today because I know we do a lot of teaching here, but I want to start today off with a quick story about me that will kind of prove a point as we go through, because it made me really look at my life And it was a changing point for me in my life that actually got me to this point, and with you and with some of the things that we're doing. It's something I always wanted to do, but I never had a catastrophic moment that forced me to do it.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that others have to have a catastrophic moment, but I'm going to just tell my story. So we'll start with that, and then we'll go into some of the points that I learned and things that happened and how we got to where we are today. Okay. So here goes the story. There I was at Hilton Head Island in early May of 2017 in a 5-star, and 5-star is not enough rating for this place because it's actually, in my head, it's a 10-star, but in a 5-star Marriott vacation resort with my family that had expectations of partying, or, not like partying like we know it, but having a good time, staying up late, all that stuff, right? Until wee hours of the morning, right?
Right.
When in fact, what really happens is most of us were in bed by 10 p.m. because we're a bunch of old bastards, right? And out for the count. Even worse, while the rest were at happy hour after spending the day on the beach, I was back in my room focusing on my current and profitable real estate transactions at the time.
Yeah, seen that.
And even if I did make it to the beach or to happy hour, because we were there for a week, I was thinking about when would be a good time to sneak a few minutes to check my emails and respond to some texts.
Yeah.
Like when nobody's looking, mainly my wife.
Closing
Right?
real estate deals in the stalls.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I've done that. Yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've done that. Been out to dinner with my wife and something will happen. I got to go to the bathroom, and I'll do that. I'll go into the bathroom and sit in a stall and just handle an email or a text. Not a good thing, but I do it. When in fact I was stressed, distracted, and had too many distracting thoughts while I'm trying to handle these deals. Right? Workcation wasn't as I thought. Because when I left, it was a good theory. But when I was there, it didn't work out so well. Right? So that was in May of 2017. We returned home, and not too long after that, my wife goes to a doctor. She was complaining about some body stuff, mostly in her throat. And we get the bad news that she has cancer. So this doctor's appointment reveals that the cancer is not, I don't think they ever told us it was deadly or anything like that, but it needed severe, extensive treatment. I mean, it was radiation and chemotherapy and. Okay?
Right.
Which meant for the next 6 months, my workcation was only a commercial of the movie I was about to encounter. So just to not to get into all the details, but there were many days, like on Mondays, we would be at the hospital 12, 14 hours a day because she would need to get radiation and she would need to get chemotherapy. The chemotherapy was about a 3-hour process. They do it intravenously. So I thought I was in pretty good shape because the first treatment, she had 3 chemo treatments over the course of 3 months. The first treatment was good. She responded well. I mean, she was ill for a couple of days and then she kind of bounced back, but that didn't last very long. Got to a point where she actually had throat cancer, something on her tongue down, like the bottom of her neck on her tongue. She had a tumor on her tongue, and they couldn't cut it out because they were worried about her life afterwards, afterlife of the treatment. So what ended up happening is after a while she couldn't eat. So they put a tube in her stomach, which meant when I wasn't with her in a hospital getting treatments, which was every day with the radiation, every 2 hours, I would have to crush up her pills and feed her intravenously through this tube in her stomach. So every 2 hours or 2.5 hours, I would have to go tend to her. So I don't want sympathy here. I don't talk about this a lot. If she knew I was talking about this on my podcast right now, she would execute me because she's embarrassed by it, obviously, or whatever. Maybe not embarrassed, but it's just a time of her life she doesn't like to talk about, right? Point is, my life wasn't my life anymore. So in between all of this, now I had been doing pretty good. I had been buying houses. I'd been doing a lot of flips. I had renovations. I had guys. I had some subject to houses. I was kind of keeping some, but after leaving my partner several years before, I just decided to kind of just sling money around, right? And it wasn't even my money. It was mostly everybody else's. Mm-hmm. And I was struggling every day with trying to do it in between my life, right? So, by the way, I'll have you know that it's several years later now, and my wife is extremely healthy and cancer free. Okay, so it was a part of our life that was kind of tough. We didn't have insurance, which was my own fault. I mean, Obamacare killed me. My insurance quadrupled, so it got to a point where, and most people don't think that's true. They think Obamacare was the thing to have, but for me, my insurance went into the thousands a month, and I just got to the point where I couldn't swing it. So we had some insurance, but not a lot. So it financially and physically and mentally squashed me. Okay. Gave me all the reason in the world to stop doing everything and just deal with my pressure. But I'm not that type of guy. I like to learn from my failures. I obviously tended to my wife, and believe it or not, I have the best relationship with my wife. We've been together 21 years, I think. And since 2017, she has completely humbled, because she was definitely a rebel with a cause. She was a handful, which is what I like, right? But she's humbled, and our relationship is better now than it ever was all those years, right? With kids, with her, with all of it. It's just amazing, right? So all that's good. But I wanted to share this story because what I realized when the skies parted and the bright light shined on me, here's what I got. The first thing that I had to really look at is the more I restricted my time, the more I did. Right? Does that make sense, Sean? I mean, I'm doing all the talking here. I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit. So,
that makes a ton of sense. It's just like,
I mean, you still work a full-time job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you do real estate.
Oh yeah.
And we're partners in a business, so I know you're active, right? So you have limited time that you could do things, right?
Yeah, very limited. So I'm a firm believer in I think it's the Pareto's law, where it's like 20% of what you do creates 80% of your results. And then also the Parkinson's principle, which is the task expands the time you allow it. So both of those are just I found them incredibly true. So how you implement those is, I basically just, like what Dan Kennedy does, I just make a list in the day, and I make A tasks, which are I absolutely have to do this, and I make B tasks, which are like this would be nice to have. And when a lot of people, when they get to work, and a lot of people I work with, and the average American, the first thing they do when they get to work, they sit down, they look at their laptop, and they let their inbox dictate their day. This email says to do this, or I got this text message, I'm going to go do this. And, I think the best thing that investor can do is just sit down and just make their own priorities from the morning and turn off their phone and do what's important. And that's what I found is you just have to be selfish with your time and just do the things that, have great results, and that's what I do. And I probably do like an hour and a half to 2 hours in real estate. But if I was doing those unimportant tasks, which, made me feel like I was being productive, but didn't yield results, I could easily spend 6 hours a day on real estate, but I would still get that 2 hour result.
Right.
So,
and you just summarized the rest of the podcast.
Oh, all right. There you go.
No, it's perfect.
Spoiler alert.
Exactly why we're here.
Spoiler.
One thing about me with the podcast is whenever I do a podcast, it's always ad-libbed, because you don't even know the title until we get on the podcast.
Yeah.
Right? And I want it to be real and live. That's why I do it. So,
all real.
So just like what you're saying, it's like spending money, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you hide money from yourself, all of a sudden you'll start to realize you're spending less, because you'll figure out a way to like make the amount of money that you have work. So time is the same way, right? Which brings me to number 2, which you just talked about. Whatever time you give yourself to work, you'll use it. Right? So if you give yourself nights and weekends and vacations like I did, you'll use it. Right? And the unusual thing about this is that when you think you have time, you don't, like you were just saying, prioritize the 20% of the 80-20 rule.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, most people are on video, but, I got like a little notebook, and every day, first thing, wake up, go to the gym, come back, and I'll time block, top 3 things and assign them a time, give myself 30 minutes to do it. And it could take 45 minutes. It just creates like a competition. It's almost like a game in your mind. Like, hey, I think I can get this done in 30 minutes. And, you end up getting it done in 20 minutes. You're like, oh, I just won 10 minutes of my time back. But otherwise you're just like, oh, I got to do this. And then you can easily turn that 20-minute task into 2 hours, 3 hours, you start it, you go do something else. So it's a huge thing.
Right. So one thing I'd like to add to that I don't know if you do this, I don't think you do, but this took me a long time to learn is, so it's one thing to do something. Mm-hmm. Just make sure that when you have tasks, that there's some qualifications portion of the task. Mm-hmm. So like for example, we're sending out emails now. You should check and I'm not saying this directly, but you should check the emails to see how they're received. Like a text message, if you're going to send a text message, just text it to yourself and see what it looks like. Yep. Right? So just don't be too quick. I mean, quick is good and fast is good, but make sure that you're keeping the quality up as well. Mm-hmm. Right? And make sure you qual check or qualify what you're sending or what somebody is receiving. Mm-hmm. Right? Because if you do things too quick sometimes, it shows up as sloppy on the other end and you don't get somebody's attention. So just make sure that when you're doing some of the stuff that we're going to talk about, and I'm going to give you the 20% that you need to do before we leave here, that makes the 80% of the income. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of like the saying, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person.
Right. Or a lazy person.
Yeah, that too.
I think it was Amazon. That's Jeff Bezos.
Yeah. Right. So most have the goal of productivity is to get, like we were talking about, as much done as quickly as possible. But like I said, the problem is because you've allocated a seemingly endless amount of time, you'll continuously find ways to fill up that time.
Yes.
Right. So even if it's not even like what Sean is saying, like I have 30 minutes to do this, I happen to know he's a very competitive person. So I can totally get that he's trying to beat the clock. Okay. That's just Sean's personality. He's a smart guy and he's just trying to beat the clock. But more importantly, if you're not competitive or if that doesn't resonate with you, at least think of it this way. Everything in life, and I think this was Aristotle that said this way back in 2,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. It's start, change, stop. So that's a cycle of action. That's a definition of a cycle of action, right? Is start, change, stop, or it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? Everything is that way. Even your life. Like you have a beginning, you have a middle, and you have an end. Okay? So doing cycles of action, doing the beginning, the middle, and the end, fairly quick is a good thing. So what we're talking about here is allocating a seemingly endless amount of time. So if you don't have the end in mind, like affirmations and goals, like I want to buy a house before March 1st, and the end of the year I want to make 100,000, all that kind of stuff. That's all good. I don't personally do that stuff. I personally think that anybody that talks about goal setting should be executed if they tell you to do goals more than 3 months. Mm-hmm. Because if you try to do goal setting for more than 3 months, you're being unrealistic, and it's mental masturbation in your own mind, because life changes. Look what happened to me. I'm telling you my story about May. So what happened to my goals that year because my environment changed? Am I still going to get those goals? Unless I'm like some superhero, maybe. But come on, there's emotions, and there's, look at our economy right now. We sit in July of 2021. You and I have a house, and I have other houses that I'm squirming right now, because I am telling you, I firmly believe, and I could be the biggest jerk or the stupidest guy in the world, but by the time we get to the end of this year, it's going to be a bloodbath. I believe that. I see it already. I see it. I hear it with my clients. I see it. I with my coaching clients. They're some of them are jumping ship because they don't have money.
Yeah.
Sellers, I'm hearing it with sellers. The market changes, and unfortunately, if you're not on the front lines talking to sellers every day, okay, then you're not hearing it, because there's a 6-month lag between what the market really is doing and you hear about it. It's like that with the stock market too. Are you the first person to hear that a stock's going to split? No. You're not.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity in that, though. There's a lot of opportunities in the bloodbath. A lot of people lost their shirts. I think I love the phrase Warren Buffett has. He's like, when you're in the ocean, you don't know who's wearing pants until the tide comes out.
Yeah.
So a lot of people lost their shirts, but a lot of people also made a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, with this upcoming bloodbath, if you position yourself right and use these creative deal strategies, have the right marketing in place, you can make out really well. There's always opportunity in chaos, a lot of opportunity. So I'm excited for a bloodbath. Sure, bring it on. Whatever.
Yeah, well, we got to get rid of this cash house we got first.
Yeah.
So the more productive you are, the more you can take on. That's really the trap.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what people think. The more productive you are, the more you can take on. Truth is that, like you said earlier, what's the 20% that will make you the money? Right? And this I'm speaking because this happens to me. It's happening to me right now. Mm-hmm. I can get blurbs of time, like there's certain weeks of the month where I don't have the meetup, or I don't have a mastery class, and I'm not preparing, and I think to myself, so I'm doing something wrong. I have time on my hands. I'll call my leads, I'll have things working, I have my closings, and I get nervous when I feel like I'm not being productive because I don't have something to do.
That's super common.
Yeah, when really I have it all underway, and like I should just go smoke a cigar or take my.
Yeah.
I told my wife earlier. I just told her an hour ago. I'm like, listen, I had an appointment for tonight, but it's changed. So like, let's go visit our grandson. Let's go get some pizza or something and go visit my grandson. And that's a mind shift for me, because I am definitely a workaholic. There is no doubt about it. Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a total mindset in America. Like people are just raised, I need to stay active it's what happens like in an office space. It's I need to stay active for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And it's just basically people have 2 hours of work to do, or 2 hours of critical work, and then they have to fill up the other 6 hours. So they just create tasks that doesn't really move the needle at all. It's just kind of shuffling papers around, but it makes them feel busy, and it strokes kind of the ego. And I just think especially in like environments like the East Coast and New York, it's just glorified. People almost like brag about how busy they are. I worked until 8 o'clock last night. Oh, really? Only 8 o'clock? I worked until 10 o'clock. And people it kind of makes them feel important, and it makes them feel, busy. And, it's, if you go to different countries and stuff, it's just totally different than every other culture. So I think they're saying it's like a mindset change to not, to not strive.
What you just said. Think about what you just said. Let's just observe that. This is not part of what I wrote here, but just think about what you said. Sean, I want to work for you for $50 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'll take it.
What do I get? What do I have to do to get your $50? Give you an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So if I just show up at the office and I'm there for an hour, you got to give me $50. Yep. I didn't say to you, or you didn't say to me, no, Bill, you're not working for me for $50 an hour. You're working for me for $50 per result, or I'll give you $500 for a result. And I don't care if it takes you 3 minutes to get it. As long as the money comes in and there's a result, I'll pay you.
Right.
So it's like you got somebody that has a job, and the boss is the fool here, or the business is the fool, because they say, I'll hire you for $20 an hour.
Right.
They didn't say I'll hire you for $20 for a productive hour. They didn't say I'm going to give you statistics and measure your hour.
Mm-hmm.
Like what products you're going to get in that hour. Like, for example, I'm going to dig a ditch. Okay, dig a ditch. What does that mean? Am I going to dig a 2-foot ditch in an hour? Or am I going to dig a 4-foot ditch in an hour? Or do I have to do the whole driveway in an hour?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you paying me for? So it starts off with that, so it's like you're paying somebody per hour. So all they need to do. So there's this endless game of like, how much could the employee get away with? So let me change that. So the employee is going to do just enough per hour that they can keep getting that $20 or $50.
Yep.
So it's this constant mental game. Like, I'm going to do just as much as he feels like or she feels like I'm productive, but I'm not going to do too much because I'm getting the same amount of money.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I could work really hard in my hour, and you could do nothing in your hour. And no disrespect, because you're one of them, but this is the millennial switch, because somebody like you could do something like what, because I'm from the boomer age, so it's like, we got to go work hard. So I'll be like, well, that takes 2 hours. You're like, I just did it in 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And we both got the same result.
Yeah. Yeah. We literally have
but on a lot of things.
No, yeah, we have people from unions that young bucks will come in, and they'll have like 30 minutes of work, and they'll go, oh, we could do it more efficiently by doing this, we could do that, and they'll knock out a task in 20 minutes, and the guys that have been there for a while be like, oh, whoa, we gotta slow down, you gotta stretch that task out a bit, you're gonna run the bin out. But yeah,
exactly right. So this never-ending cycle of reactions to whatever comes along in your business, problems or opportunities, in order to move on, is completely dangerous and reckless as far as I'm concerned. So if you don't have this start, change, stop, or this beginning, middle, end cycle in mind, in other words, like what you're saying, I've got 30 minutes to do this task. If you don't give yourself a deadline, well, let me put it this way. Let me ask you this question. Mm-hmm. Completely off the chart.
Sure.
We all went to school, right? Hopefully. Yeah. Everybody listening went to school.
So did your teacher?
Yeah, exactly. Did your teacher give you a deadline of when you had to have your homework in?
Yeah.
And if you didn't have a deadline, how long would it take you to do your homework?
Right.
Here's another one. Ever go to the grocery store and pick something up in the grocery store and see the expiration date? That's your deadline. That means this food is only good up until this date. Otherwise, don't eat it after that. So those are just two obvious deadline type scenarios. So there has to be an ending. If there's not, your necessity level to get it done will decrease. Right? Mm-hmm. Necessity level is the mother of invention, they say.
That's right.
That's the reason why. I mean, if you don't have your rent money and it's the 30th of the month, what's your necessity level going to be like to get money? Right? But if your rent is due the 30th of the month and it's only the 5th or the 6th or the 10th, what's your necessity level going to be like? Right. So that's what my point is. So, Sean, I want to take the rest of this podcast and talk about how our creative real estate entrepreneurs and listeners can go from living in this survival trap that we have, which is just reacting to problems or options or opportunities, to actually doing what we're talking about and time blocking or at least putting deadlines on certain things so that we don't have this endless seemingly amount of time to do something.
Right?
And that's living in this survival trap that I'm talking about. Right? Because if you're not doing this, you're living in this survival trap. And discarding any organization and planning for tomorrow. So you're always living in present time. You're not living in tomorrow. When you do that and you're reactive, you're living in today, not tomorrow. Right? So, like you said, if you take our advice today, you'll soon see how the 20% of your real estate activity can produce the 80% of your income.
Yeah.
And it's not a time thing. In fact, half of the theory is not even, you don't even need to know how to do real estate to do some of this stuff. You just got to be human and know how to communicate. Right? And you'll figure out the rest. Right? All right. So if you want to eliminate your very trashy day-to-day activity that results in quick highs and deep lows, the only resort to doing anything to make a buck, right? And that's what happens is people make decisions, quick decisions, and they only give them quick highs and they give them deep lows. Peter and I talked about this on a bunch of podcasts. One of the things that I do is I do a drill in my mind, like I say to myself, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Like if we don't sell this house that we're talking about, what's the worst that can happen?
It's fear setting. That's Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss has similar exercise.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like you're gonna make a life decision. You would react emotionally, and it's just a way to really take it from an emotional decision to a logical decision. Like, okay, I want to move to Costa Rica, and then in your mind, it's like, oh my God, like so many things could go wrong, and then you just make a list of 5 absolute worst case things that would happen, and once you list it out, it's like that's not really that bad. Like I can manage that.
Exactly. When you start confronting the worst things that can happen, you'll notice that. Don't do what you're saying 5. I don't believe in that. I believe you got to do 8 or 10 because you just don't start getting good for the solutions until you get that far along. Right? You'll start getting clever with the solutions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I want to embed in your mind, and I mean, if I could take like a branding hot iron that they use for cows and stick it on your forehead, here's what it would say. Not all real estate is alike, which means not all investing is alike, right? Now hear this, and this is important. I've not said this before. I keep getting better and better at articulating this, and I feel like this is the best I've got to date, okay? Mm-hmm. Realtors treat all real estate alike.
True.
Right? I mean, commercial transactions, single-family houses, multifamily houses, unless you got somebody that does it every single day. Like, for example, too often I've had to do a transaction on a multifamily property with a residential realtor. And my realtor will immediately say to me, here we go. They have no idea. Right? Because it's different. I'll give you one example. You're not going to sell a multifamily house without a profit and loss statement.
Mm-hmm.
Anything 5 units and above is considered commercial real estate in the apartment world.
Yep.
So here's what happens. They don't comp those houses. They don't use comparable units. They do it based on the income. They call it NOI, net on
Operating income.
Operating income. Yeah, thank you. Net operating income, which means they take all the money that comes in and then they take the expenses out. Now, the expenses don't mean the mortgage payments. It just means what are the taxes? What's the water bill? Is there any utilities that you have to pay? That kind of stuff. Repairs. How much was repairs? Snow and grass. Those are hard costs. If you're an accountant and you're doing accounting, those are called cost of goods, right? So in other words, when you're doing accounting, you have money that comes in, you subtract the cost of goods. Like, so if you're selling cars, you have to pay for the car. So if you sell a car for 10 grand and you paid 7 grand for the car, your cost of goods is the 7 grand that you had to pay for the car, right? It's the same thing. So it's your cost of goods. And when you get done, when you do that, in my world, we call it CGI, corrected gross income. In other words, you got $10,000 in for a car, you subtracted the 7,000, and then your CGI, or corrected gross income, or your gross net profit is 3 grand. Now, out of the 3 grand, you're going to pay the rent, you're going to pay the utilities, and so that's how I do it in a business. Well, real estate the same way. So my point is, if a realtor does a residential realtor is not going to know any of this unless they've done one of these transactions. So all my point is not all real estate is alike. So the realtor or the realtor system treats real estate alike, which is why so many of their sellers and buyers complain about the process. I mean, I've been in thousands of houses, and I can say, and this is not absolute, but I can tell you that 99.9% of every property I've been in will tell me their horror story about using the realtor system. And that's the reason why, is because one size doesn't fit all. Right? Okay. So that makes sense, right? And that's the difference between me or us in this system and others, using a realtor system, because our motto should really be real estate without realtors. That should be our motto, right? That's quote unquote the philosophy, if you would, right? Is we do real estate without realtors. How we do that changes on how the economy is. Like right now, we're buying off-market houses. We're hunting down off-market houses, and we're bringing them to the market, right? So I got to sneeze. Excuse me. Once the market changes, there was a period where I was buying multiple houses off the MLS because there was a lot of bank-owned properties, and I could go buy them for my formula and win. Mm-hmm. Then there might be a time where we'll use nothing but subject to, because there's a bunch of foreclosures and people can't make their payments. So we'll go off and assume those payments and catch up the 1 or 2 or 3 payments behind, and we'll be doing those deals, right? Yep. So the point is the environment changes, and we adapt one of my 7 strategies, which you can find at flippinghousesforrookies.com. Just next to the pretty girl, there's a right on the front page, there's an opt-in that you can go to, called Creative Real Estate Deal Making 101 or something like that, and it explains all that. But for right now, I want to go over the steps that we use on every transaction. It doesn't make a difference what type of transaction this is. I will tell you that you and I hone in a lot of, which is the most ironic thing in the world, because we hone in on pretty houses, but we buy a lot of ugly houses. It's kind of funny,
It happens sometimes,
right? It's just the way the economy is right now. All right,
yeah.
So I don't want our listeners to discard this as too simple, because the simple things are what last the longest and make the most amount of money once you know how to use them, right? So here it is. Number 1, you need to find potential seller lists. Okay. When I mean list, I'm talking about a congregation. So like you're going to go into Wallingford, Connecticut, and you need to make sure that you got a minimum of a few thousand potential sellers. If you don't do that, like for example, I was talking to a coaching client yesterday, and they're in an area where there's a few hundred. That's okay, but just realize that, if you had an apple tree and it produced 100 apples, you got plenty of apples, right? But suppose that apple tree, say you got a family of 20 that you're trying to feed, okay? If you got an apple tree that produced 5 apples, how long are you going to feed that family of 20? You know what I mean? It's kind of a stupid analogy, but that's what you're looking at, right? Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure you have a big enough list or a big enough farm area so that when you pick the area and you pick the list, which, by the way, the list has everything to do with your resources. So if you don't have money or you don't have capital or you don't have a way to get money or don't want to do rehabs and you want to do lease options, buy with a lease option and then sublease it, then you need to make sure there's enough properties there that you could do that. There's enough people leasing or renting their properties, right? You could go into areas like, for example, we have a place here. Wallingford is a town, but within Wallingford, there's a subsidiary section called Yalesville. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're looking for rehab retail, Yalesville is not the place to go.
Right.
One or two a year pop up. 5 a year, something like that. There's just not enough resources there for you to get. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that's number one, finding potential seller lists. Number two, once you find the list, you have to contact those potential sellers. We do it by text and then contact them by phone once they pass the text test.
That's new. I haven't heard that.
Yeah, they have to pass the text test. Yeah. Okay.
It's like,
so basically, go ahead.
I should say it's like back in middle school. Like, do you want to be my friend or do you think I'm cute? Check yes or check no.
That's right. That's right. Do you want to be my Valentine? Yes or no? Right. So
that's what we said.
Yeah. So the point that I'm trying to make here is most people don't like cold calling. I mean, I don't, and I do a lot of it. Right. So if you text people and test them with some preliminary pre-qualifying questions, you'll know which ones to get on the phone with and which ones not to get on the phone with. Now, here's a very important factor. If you pick the list correctly, based on what you want to do and how you want to do things, or what you have affinity for, like, for example, you want to do lease options or rent to owns, because you have done that. Like, for example, I have a new coaching client, Andrew, and we were talking the other day in the coaching call, and he was asking about lease options. And I just said to him, well, do you have an apartment? He goes, yeah. I said, did you sign a lease? I said, yeah. I said, then you know how to do this. He goes, right. Really? I thought it was more difficult than that. No, you've already done this. The only difference is I'm going to show you how to draft a lease. But if you rented an apartment, then you know how to do this. You don't need a bunch of training. So basically, you're going to go rent it from someone for a certain amount of money, and then you're going to go find someone else that will rent it from you, and you're going to sandwich yourself in the middle to make some profits. But do you need closings and lawyers and all this fancy stuff? No. Yeah. So here's my point. If you pick the right list, now when you start texting people and you start talking to people, they're going to be on the same wavelength as you. It's going to be easy to talk to them because you're going to have things in common. Right. But if build
just as some people might like just an actual example, like to give a hard example, like you're saying, like a lease option, like how can I make profit? Who would I talk to? For example, if you could make a list of duplex to fourplex absentee, which means the owner doesn't live there, which means he rents it, and it's a senior owner. So you're looking for a 60-year-old landlord that's been renting for 20 years and hasn't raised the rent in 10 years. Exactly. So basically all you're looking to do is find an inefficient or tired landlord that's underutilizing a property. You bring it, and the landlord's making the same amount of money without the work, and then you just fully utilize the property and you're paid for it.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what you're looking for.
But why is this so, think about this for a second. Why is this so prevalent now or so strong right now? Because technology has caught up to this concept. It used to be you had to go to the library and order a list and buy a list, and from certain books that cost a lot of money. Nowadays, you go online, and we do this. Sometimes we do this for. I mean, we have a service we use less than $100 a month, and it gives us 10,000 names. You could buy a list for $40 online nowadays to do this, right?
Yeah, list source can do it. Yeah, you could do small batches in list source, or we use PropStream.
Yeah. Melissa Data is another one, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that brings us to step 3. So now you've texted someone and tested them on whether they're qualified, right? In other words, are they similar to you, or are they willing to talk to you about things you want to talk about, right? Number 3 of this process is what we call the closing call part 1, right? So in the first part, which by the way, this is one phone call, but it's got 2 parts to it. You have 2 things that you're going to want to do on this call. One, you want to do the discovery stage. The discovery stage is basically this. When they bought this property, the day they bought this property, they were happy. And now it's a later date. It could be the next day. It could be 50 years from now. They're not happy with the property anymore. So you need to find out why. So what happened that they became unhappy? Okay. So here's the interesting part. We talk about, well, I'm not going to get into that. We talk about need and greed and all that kind of stuff. There's 2 types of unhappiness that this seller has with the property. One is derived by or created by the property itself. And they're trying to relieve themselves of that problem. Mm-hmm. The other is outside of the property. Like for example, I got to pay my daughter's college tuition, and I have locked up equity in the house, so I'm selling the house to unlock the equity to pay the loan, right? So when you're doing a discovery stage, you want to be able to figure out, is it a problem internally with the house, or is it an external problem? Because you'll deal with each one differently. And that's what the discovery stage is all about, right? Then once you discover what is needed and wanted, you can then make an offer based on what's needed and wanted. So it's a custom offer to them, which, by the way, I've had many transactions. Like, for example, I was talking to a guy the other day. I think I was telling you about it. The guy's in Florida. He's 70-something years old, has a house in Connecticut. And he's like, I got to clean the house out. I got to get stuff out of there. And I'm like, what if I hired a crew of guys that could meet you at the house? You point what you want to take. They put it in a truck, and they drive it to Florida and unload it for you. He's like, right. Really? Right? Hang on 1 second. Right? And all of a sudden, I became somebody different. Right? Does that make sense? So I made the offer based on what's going on in his life. Right? So that's step number 3 and 4 is the closing call. The first part of the call, you're going to do discovery, and the second part, you're going to offer. Yeah. Well, you're not necessarily going to make an offer. You're going to give a litmus test. You're going to test them, like, what if, like, for example, if you want to do a subject to offer, what if I took your house out of your name, put it into a trust, we own the trust and we manage the trust, which means the loan stays in your name, but the trust will own the house. Would that keep you awake at night? And if they say yes, then you move on to a lease option, and they don't, it's a different story, right?
Yep.
Okay. Number 5. Now you're ready to do a deal meeting because you struck some sort of an offer. You made an offer and you made a proposal, and they said yes. So now you need to do a 2-part deal meeting. 1, you need to qualify the property because you just qualified the seller, which, by the way, we were talking about the 80-20 rule. And who was the name?
Pareto.
Okay. So 80-20 rule. This is what I'm talking about right here. How many people go out and look at properties and decide they want to buy a property after they looked at it? They never talk to a seller. This is what the realtor does backwards. because a realtor's code of ethics that they sign and have to live by and are managed by says they can't reveal the motivation of their client. That's either buyer or seller. So how could you make a good offer if you don't know what their motivation is? Like, for example, suppose I had a deal with the realtor. Would I be able to make the offer of, I can send my guys there, load the truck, and bring the furniture to Florida? Could I do that? Probably not. But that was the barrier, or that was the points that the seller was mulling on. He that was the part that was kind of like ruining him or causing him to hesitate to sell, or why the house has been sitting vacant. And that's the motivation. So if the realtor can't, if he or she can't technically reveal that, and I understand the reason why they do it, because they don't want people to take advantage of other people and all that kind of stuff. I understand that. But the point is that why would you go look at properties and then make offers? Because I've never been to a closing where the property signed the documents, right? So we don't look at the property or do anything with the property or qualify the property until step 5 out of 6, because if the seller's not motivated, there's no sense in us even continuing. I don't want to look at the property until I know the seller is willing to do what we want to do, and then we go look at the property. Worst case scenario is we look at the property and they lied about the price. Like they told us it was worth $400,000, it's only worth $150,000, which we wouldn't know that because we can go online nowadays. Or you get to the house and they tell you it's a beautiful house and it needs $80,000 worth of repairs. You can always say no at that point. So you go out and look at the property, or you get pictures. If you're doing it virtually, you can do that online, You can always say, I don't want this property. Or that $200,000 I gave to you as an offer is no longer $200,000. It needs work. I'm only paying $140,000. Take it or leave it. Right? Which we do. Mm-hmm. So the first start of the deal meeting is property inspection. The second part of the deal meeting is getting them to sign the paperwork. And this is where your deal, this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where your deal comes together. Until you get to this portion of the deal, you don't know if you have a deal, because they could be faking you out. They could be telling, yeah, I want to do it. But then when they have to sign documents, all of a sudden things get a little bit solid. They get a little bit serious. They get a little bit hard, and they have to do things. Now they're going to commit for real because they're going to sign something. Which, by the way, this is probably the third or fourth time I'll propose my proposal. I have to sell it all over again, right? I just did a closing on Sunday, and I'm being a dumbass because now I had the title search done. Come to find out, she's got $4,000 in tax liens, or not tax, income tax, which I already gave him my money, already closed it. Now I got to go deal with that. But the point is that this is where the deal actually happens. You can't get excited about a deal until people start signing documents. And even then, you can't get too excited until you close. Okay? So just to run through these 6 steps again, and then we're going to get out of here because it's that time, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to find potential seller list. You're going to contact those potential sellers by text, then contact once they pass the text test. Then 3, you're going to do a closing call part 1. That's the discovery stage. Then you're going to do closing call part 2, which is the offer revealed. Then you're going to do deal meeting 1, part 1, which is the property inspection. And then you're going to do deal meeting part 2, which is signing the paperwork. Okay. Now, Sean, here's the thing. I've talked about this on other podcasts before with Pete, right? In fact, Pete and I did a whole dedicated podcast just to this process on episode number 248. So if you want to know more about it, go to 248. I'm not even going to give you the name of it. It's episode 248. Plus, I find it so important that I wrote a book called Breaking the Real Estate Monopoly. And that covers the entire process. Okay. But today, I wanted to take a few minutes before we end off and nail down something I have not talked about, or have talked about very little until today. And here's the point. It's called automation. Right? So let me explain. And you know this because you helped me do this. You were a huge part of this. So, see, number one needs you to do it personally. You have to figure out where your farm market is and what your marketing is going to drag in. What type of leads do you want, right? And are you able to do those deals according to your affinity for the deal, and which is liking or disliking for the deal, and according to your resources, right? So that's a 1 or 2 hour session, if that. You do it now quickly for our list.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
But that's because we've clarified what we want and where we want it, right? But in the beginning, when we move around to other states and stuff like that, we have conversations, and we'll spend half hour, whatever, just looking at statistics about the farm market and making sure that it's what we want and there's enough potential there. But once you do that, you set it and forget it. Just like what you said, it takes 5 minutes for you to pull lists and put them in our system, right? Which then brings me to step of the system, which is texting and the opening calls, right? This is where software and some $5 an hour VAs can give you back 80% of your life, right? Imagine if you have a system that you could set up with your list according to the type of deals you want to do, upload that list to some very inexpensive software, set it up for your personal schedule, in other words, for when you could work, then show up to work on your real estate when it's convenient for you, and do the hardcore 20% of the work that would make 80% of your income. That would be freaking cool, which is exactly what we did, because you did it for me, right? Yep. I'm talking about, and this is the magic of the business. Matter of fact, I'll do that in a second, because I have a new idea that I thought of the other day that I want to share with everyone, because this is so simple. The idea is so simple, but it could change your life. Because I heard a story about Seinfeld doing this. So I'm talking about pre-qualifying sellers who are interested in doing creative real estate deals the way you want to do them automatically. If you could do this, do you think that real estate investing could be adapted to your current life? Right? I got to share this with you. So,
how can I sign
up?
At least,
I'm going to show you where you can go. It's not. We're not even here trying to sell anything, but there's some classes that are for free. I'm going to show you. So, okay. So, first thing I want to do is, if you're going to do this manually, which you can do, here's what Seinfeld did, supposedly. I mean, he made $500 million in a lifetime telling jokes, right? And I don't even think he's that funny, but I have a bad sense of humor. I'm very English. I have a bad sense of humor, right? So I have a very dry humor. And believe me, my family tells me every chance I can get, right? So here's what he did. When he first started, he got a calendar, and I'm actually going to do this too. He got a calendar, and what he would do is he would write one joke a day, good, bad, or indifferent, just one joke a day. And when he wrote that joke, he would X that day off the calendar. So here's what I'm proposing to you today: is get a calendar and put it on the wall, and just talk to anyone, a seller once a day. Don't make an offer. Don't do anything. Just talk to a seller a day, and when you do that, you X off the calendar. Right? That's what I would do. So here's the deal. We need to end off now because we're at 58 minutes. I'm supposed to be doing 45-minute podcasts, and we're doing 60 minutes. So we need to end off. But I don't want to leave you with a cliffhanger for all this stuff. So what we've done is we put together a 3-video master class where you can get a lot more details on what I'm talking about. and how to do this in the current economy. Okay, so I mean, I guess I could drag it over of a couple podcasts, which maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it next week. I'm not sure yet, but minimally right now, you can go get this 3-part series for free. Now, I don't think we're going to do this for free forever, but I think that for the next few weeks, or if you're listening to this podcast, the link that I give you will give you a specific entry.
Mm-hmm.
Right? John, who's a coaching client, says, when do you implement a VA, or how do you know when to make that decision? So, John, most people will make that decision quickly based on their wallet. So here's what happens. You need to decide, are you going to pay attention to the outflow or the inflow? So my answer is hire that VA right away. If you got a job, you got other things going on, the sooner you can hire those virtual assistants to do your texting and some of your calls, the faster you'll make deals. Because at the end of the day, John, outflow equals inflow. And a virtual assistant that has to work a couple hours or 3 hours a day, and that's all they do, means that your outflow will always happen. As long as they come to work, it'll happen. If I leave it up to you, it'll happen. I mean, look what happens to me. I make calls on Wednesday, and then I don't do them until Saturday, and then I do them. I'm a flake with my time, right? And most of us are. So the answer is, the sooner you could do it, the faster you'll do deals. Because the more proposals, the more offers you make, the more deals you'll find. So that's the answer. Okay?
The only thing I'd add is just make sure you do the deal do the work yourself for like a week, and then figure out what their job is, what they're like, put together what their role is, and you have to know their job before you hire someone. I think the mistake a lot of people make is just like, oh, having a VA is awesome. Having a VA is going to get me results. And they just hire a VA and they don't even know what the VA is supposed to do. It's just kind of stroking their ego and, like you said, mental masturbation. I have a VA now. I'm going to be more efficient. But really what you should be doing is, run your business, and then just every day write down a task that you think someone could do 80% as well as you, if you taught them how to do it. Anything like that, outsource it. So the only thing we don't outsource is closing calls, because no one can close a deal 80% as well as Bill. So we're not going to outsource it. But those VAs can text at least 80% as well as me or Bill. So that's why they do all of our texting. They do all of our pre-qualification, because they can do it 80% as well as us, and they cost 20 times less. So that's kind of my answer.
So I totally agree with you. For a very long time, here's how I would hire a VA. This is not custom. This is not what you should do, but this is what I do. I call it my shit list. Like you write a to-do list, and some of those things go from day to day to day, and they don't get done. Those are the things you don't want to do. The shit list. And I would write those down, and that would be job description for my VA.
There you go.
So there you go. I mean, but it's I think Sean's suggestion is much better. Okay. So John says Big 10-4, Sean. So there you go. All right, good. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/deal automation. Deal automation. The link is in the description of either where you're watching this or where you're listening to it, whether it's podcast or on Facebook or on as I call Flakebook or Zootube, one or the other. The link is in the description. Okay. Just go there and click on the link, and you can register for all 3 videos that will give you a lot more information about this. And they're videos, so they'll be pictorial. There's one video where we actually go through, show you all the lists. We show you how we pick the list and how we do it, and it's a step-by-step video. And I think they're all like half an hour long or 40 minutes. I think one of them is like 40 minutes long. Something like that.
I even put in a bonus that like literally shows you subject to and seller finance. If you're using something like ListSource or PropStream, I put exactly the list we use as a bonus. So they get that for free, and then they also get the 5-step deal chart for free as well as a bonus, plus the videos. So there's good stuff in there.
Right. And the reason why I'm doing this, because I'm the one that makes these decisions, obviously, not being a hotshot, but because I'm tired of talking about it. So Sean is like, we should just automate this. We should just make videos and stop like telling everybody this, because it's on the coaching calls, it's on the Deal Hunting Monthly Mastery, it's on the monthly meetup, the No Bucks monthly. I just keep saying it over and over again. So I'm done. I need to move on in my life. I don't need to be doing this anymore, teaching you, saying the same thing, and this might be the first time you're hearing it, and I'm just done. So go watch the master classes. The training is there. I've explained it today. I've explained the theory of why you should automate and how you can get your time back, and just go watch the master classes. It's flippinghousesforrookies.com/deal automation. And like I said, the offer is only going to be there for free for a few days from now. And if you're listening to this podcast later on after we recorded it, there's going to be a special link there only if you listen to this podcast, and it will only be good for a couple days. Okay, so technology, thank goodness, will let us do that. Okay, so just go check it out. Go watch the videos. You don't need a wallet. You don't need anything. Just go watch the videos. Okay? So, Sean, we're an hour, 5 minutes. We're 5 minutes way past our screaming dead halt. Thank you for your help. I know I do most of the talking, but thank you for your help. Sean does a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. He named himself the builder, meaning that he builds these systems, and that's what he does behind the scenes, and that's why he's here. So, thanks for listening. Don't forget to go to like us wherever you're watching us or hearing us. Don't forget to subscribe to wherever you're watching or hearing us, and don't forget that we are on Facebook and YouTube. So if you subscribe there, when we actually start doing a video, it'll pop up and you'll know that we're live, and you can get some more information. Okay. And lastly, if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, top right-hand corner, there's a support ticket. I answer all those support tickets, so if you have any questions, just send them to me directly. Okay? Over and out. Thanks, man.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.